Jake Martinez walked through the long metal halls of the space station. His tool belt made soft clinking sounds with each step. The station was huge, bigger than any building he had ever seen on Earth. It floated in space between the stars, home to thousands of humans and aliens. The station was called New Horizons. It was supposed to be a place where different species could work together. Humans had built it with help from the Galactic Coalition. That was a group of alien races that controlled most of the galaxy. The idea sounded good on paper. In real life, things were more complicated. Jake was a maintenance worker. He fixed broken pipes, changed light bulbs, and kept the air systems running. Most people on the station did not notice him. He was just the guy who showed up when something broke. The scientists and diplomats thought they were more important than him. Jake did not mind. He liked working with his hands and solving problems. That morning, Jake got a work order to check the air filters in Section C7. This was one of the lower levels of the station. Not many people went there. It was where they stored supplies and kept the big machines that made the station work. Jake took the elevator down and started walking through the dimly lit corridors. He heard a soft humming sound coming from one of the storage rooms. Jake stopped and listened. The sound was beautiful, like music, but not quite human. He followed the sound and found its source. A figure was cleaning the floor in one of the rooms. At first, Jake thought it was a human woman. Then she turned around and he saw she was something else entirely. Her skin had a soft glow to it like moonlight on water. Colors moved across her face in gentle waves, blue, silver, and pale green. Her eyes were larger than human eyes, and they seemed to hold starlight. Jake knew what she was. The Velnari were refugees from a planet that had been destroyed in a war. A few dozen of them lived on the station now. Most people avoided them. Jake had heard the other workers talking. They said the Velnari brought bad luck. Some thought they might be spies for the enemy. The alien woman stopped humming when she saw Jake. Her skin turned a darker blue color. Jake realized she was afraid of him. He had seen that look before on the faces of stray dogs back on Earth. "Sorry," Jake said quietly. "I did not mean to bother you. I am just here to check the air filters." The woman nodded but did not speak. She went back to cleaning the floor. Jake noticed she was using old equipment that barely worked. The cleaning fluid was weak, and her protective gloves had holes in them. The company was supposed to give all workers good equipment. Someone was not following the rules. Jake worked on the air filters for an hour. The alien woman kept cleaning nearby rooms. He could hear her humming again very softly. The sound made him feel peaceful. When he finished his work, Jake packed up his tools. He stopped at the supply closet on his way out. Jake took a pair of new gloves and a bottle of strong cleaning fluid. He left them on a shelf where the woman would find them. He did not say anything about it. Jake just walked away. Later that day, Jake was eating lunch in the station's main dining hall. He sat alone at a corner table, like always. The hall was full of noise and conversation. Humans, aliens, and various species all ate together, but they mostly stayed in their own groups. Commander Lisa Hayes sat with the other senior officers. She was a tough woman who ran the station with an iron fist. Dr. Alex Carter was at another table with his research team. He was studying alien biology and thought he was very smart. Captain Ryan Brooks sat with the security guards. He did not trust any of the aliens on the station. Jake watched as one of the Velnari entered the dining hall. It was not the woman he had met earlier. This one was male, with silver skin that sparkled under the lights. He got food from the serving line and looked around for a place to sit. One by one, every table found excuses to turn him away. "Sorry, we are saving this seat for someone. This table is for staff only. We were just leaving." The Velnari man stood in the middle of the room, holding his tray with nowhere to go. Finally, he sat alone at a table near the garbage bins. People moved their chairs so they would not have to look at him. Jake felt sick watching this happen. He remembered being the new kid at school, eating lunch by himself while other kids ignored him. After lunch, Jake went back to work. He had to replace some light panels in Section D2. This was where most of the aliens lived. The hallways were quieter here. Different smells filled the air, spices and foods from distant planets. Jake saw the cleaning woman again. She was scrubbing the walls outside the alien quarters. Someone had written mean words there in several languages. Jake could not read all of them, but he understood the message. The word said the aliens were not wanted here. The woman was trying to clean off the writing, but it was not working very well. Whoever had written it used permanent markers. Jake watched her struggle for a few minutes. Her skin was turning dark blue again. She was upset. Jake went to his supply cart and got a bottle of solvent. It was strong stuff that could remove almost anything. He walked over to the woman and held out the bottle. "This will work better," he said simply. She looked up at him with those strange, beautiful eyes. For a moment she just stared. Then she took the bottle. "Thank you," she said. Her voice was soft and musical, like her humming. Jake nodded and went back to changing the light panels. Behind him he heard the sound of scrubbing. The hateful words were finally coming off the walls. When Jake finished his work, the woman was gone. The walls were clean. The bottle of solvent sat empty on the floor. Jake picked it up and put it in his cart. As he walked back to the elevator, Jake thought about what he had seen that day. The station was supposed to be a symbol of cooperation between species. But the reality was different. Fear and prejudice were everywhere, just like back on Earth. Jake had always been on the outside looking in. Maybe that was why he noticed things other people missed. He saw how the Velnari were treated, how they were pushed to the edges and forgotten. It reminded him of his own life. The elevator arrived and Jake stepped inside. Tomorrow would bring new problems to fix and new equipment to repair. But he knew he would also be watching for that woman with the glowing skin and sad eyes. Someone on this station needed to show her basic kindness, even if that someone was just a maintenance worker that nobody noticed. 3 weeks passed since Jake first met the Velnari woman. He learned her name was Zarath. She worked the night shift, cleaning areas that other workers would not touch. The dangerous sections near the reactor, the waste processing rooms, the storage areas where toxic chemicals were kept. Jake started timing his maintenance rounds to cross paths with her. Not to bother her, but to check if she had proper safety gear. Most of the time, she did not. The supply department gave her old equipment that barely worked. Her breathing mask had cracks in it. Her radiation detector was broken. Jake began leaving things where Zarath would find them. A new breathing mask on a supply shelf, fresh radiation badges near her cleaning cart, better chemical-resistant gloves in the storage closets. He never said anything about it. Zarath never thanked him directly, but her skin would glow a little brighter when she saw the gifts. One morning, Jake was fixing a broken water pipe when he heard shouting from the main corridor. Red lights flashed on the walls. An emergency alarm was ringing. Jake dropped his tools and ran toward the sound. People were running everywhere. The station's speakers crackled with Commander Hayes' voice. "All personnel to emergency stations. Solar flare incoming. Radiation levels rising. Power grid unstable." Jake had lived through solar flares before. They were dangerous, but usually manageable. The station had shields to protect them from radiation. Backup power could keep essential systems running. But something felt different this time. The lights were flickering more than usual. In the main command center, chaos ruled. Dr. Carter was shouting at his assistants. "The quantum field generators are overloading. If they fail, we lose all power." Captain Brooks was on the radio with the security teams. "Seal all airlocks. Prepare for full station lockdown." Commander Hayes stood in the center of it all, trying to stay calm. But Jake could see the worry in her eyes. This was worse than a normal solar flare. "How long until the flare hits?" Hayes asked. 15 minutes, Dr. Carter replied. "Maybe less." Jake watched the displays showing power levels throughout the station. The numbers were dropping fast. In the lower sections where Zarath worked, the readings were already in the red zone. People down there would be in serious danger. "Commander," Dr. Carter said, his voice shaking. "The field generators are failing faster than expected. We need to evacuate the lower levels now." Before Hayes could respond, a new voice spoke up. "There is another way." Everyone turned. Zarath stood in the doorway of the command center. Her skin was glowing bright silver, which Jake had learned meant she was very focused. Security guards moved toward her, but she ignored them. "The quantum field stabilizers can be recalibrated," Zarath continued. "If you adjust the harmonic frequency to match the solar radiation, the generators will not overload." Dr. Carter laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "That is impossible. The calculations alone would take hours." "I have already done the calculations," Zarath said simply. She pulled out a small device and projected numbers into the air. Complex equations filled the space above her hand. Jake looked at the equations and saw genius. He could not understand all the math, but he recognized brilliance when he saw it. Dr. Carter studied the numbers too. His face went pale. This might actually work, Carter whispered. Captain Brooks stepped forward. We cannot trust her. This could be sabotage. Sabotage? Jake spoke up before he could stop himself. She is trying to save us all. Everyone looked at Jake. He was just a maintenance worker. He had no right to speak in the command center, but he continued anyway. Zareth has been working in the dangerous sections for weeks. She knows those systems better than anyone. If she says this will work, we should listen. Commander Hayes looked from Jake to Zareth to the failing power displays. 10 minutes until the solar flare hit. The station groaned around them as systems began shutting down. Do it, Hayes ordered. Dr. Carter's team rushed to input Zareth's calculations. Jake watched the alien woman guide them through the process. Her movements were quick and precise. She knew exactly what she was doing. 5 minutes, someone shouted. The power grid stabilized. Yellow lights turned green across the displays. The quantum field generators stopped overloading. Jake felt the station's vibrations return to normal. Field harmonics locked, Dr. Carter announced. Generators stable. 3 minutes later, the solar flare hit. Radiation washed over the station's shields like a wave of fire. But the power held. The shields held. Everyone was safe. In the aftermath, the command center was quiet. People stared at the displays showing normal power levels. They had come very close to disaster. How did you know to do that? Commander Hayes asked Zareth. My people have dealt with stellar radiation for thousands of years, Zareth replied. Our homeworld orbited a variable star. We learned to work with its moods, not against them. Dr. Carter was studying the data from the incident. These readings are incredible. The efficiency improvement is remarkable. But Captain Brooks was not convinced. How convenient that you had the solution ready. Almost like you knew this would happen. Jake felt anger rise in his chest. Are you saying she caused the solar flare? That is crazy. I'm saying it is suspicious, Brooks replied. Maybe she sabotaged the generators earlier, then came back to play hero. Other people in the room began nodding. Jake could not believe what he was hearing. Zareth had just saved the entire station. Instead of gratitude, they were showing suspicion. That makes no sense, Jake said loudly. Zareth works in the lower levels every day. If the power failed, she would be the first to die from radiation poisoning. Maybe that was part of the plan, Dr. Carter suggested. Make it look like she was at risk too. Jake looked around the room at all the frightened, angry faces. These were supposed to be smart people. Scientists and officers trained to think logically, but fear was making them stupid. You want to blame someone for the solar flare? Jake asked. Blame the sun. It does not care about our politics. Commander Hayes held up her hand for silence. Enough, the crisis is over. Everyone return to your duties. As people filed out of the command center, Jake saw Zareth standing alone near the wall. Her skin had turned dark blue again. She was hurt by the accusations, but not surprised. Jake walked over to her. Thank you, he said quietly. You saved us all. Zareth looked at him with those starlight eyes. Your species confuses me, Jake Martinez. You show both the greatest kindness and the deepest cruelty. We are not all the same, Jake replied. Some of us are better than others. And some of us, Zareth said softly, are worse. She walked away, leaving Jake alone in the command center. Around him, the station hummed with life. Power flowed through cables and systems. Air moved through vents and filters. Everything was working perfectly, thanks to an alien refugee that most people saw as a threat. Jake went back to his maintenance duties. But he kept thinking about what had happened. Zareth had risked her own safety to save people who hated her. She had shared knowledge that could have given her people an advantage. Instead, she used it to protect those who called her an enemy. That evening, Jake walked through the lower levels during his final rounds. He found evidence of Zareth's work everywhere. Floors so clean they sparkled. Equipment organized and properly maintained. Even the air smelled fresher in areas where she had worked. She took pride in her job even though it was beneath her skills. Jake had seen her educational records in the station database. Zareth had advanced degrees in quantum physics and stellar engineering. She could have been leading research teams instead of cleaning floors. But the Galactic Coalition did not recognize Velnari education. They said refugee credentials could not be verified. So brilliant scientists became janitors. Engineers became waste handlers. Doctors became food service workers. Jake found Zareth in the reactor maintenance section. checking radiation levels with her new equipment. She was being extra careful after the day's events. Working late? Jake asked. The solar flare may have caused microfractures in the shielding, Zareth replied. Someone should check. Jake looked at the readings over her shoulder. Everything was normal. The shields look fine to me. Yes, but fine is not perfect. Your people will blame me if anything goes wrong. Jake realized she was right. If any problems appeared in the next few weeks, people would say Zareth had sabotaged something. She was being extra careful to protect herself from future accusations. That is not fair, Jake said. Zareth's skin flickered with sad colors. Fair is a human concept. The universe does not care about fair. They worked together in comfortable silence for the next hour. Jake helped her document the inspection results. Everything was properly recorded and filed. No one could say she had been careless. As they finished up, Jake realized something had changed between them. They were no longer strangers crossing paths by accident. They were becoming something like friends, even if the rest of the station could not see it yet. 2 months had passed since the solar flare incident. Life on the station had returned to normal, but things had changed for Zareth. People watched her more carefully now. Some with suspicion, others with grudging respect. Jake had started eating his lunch in different places around the station. Not the main dining hall where everyone could see him, but in quiet corners and maintenance areas. Sometimes Zareth would appear with her own food. They would eat together without talking much. Jake learned that she liked human coffee but could not eat most human food. Her people needed different nutrients. One day Jake brought an extra sandwich to lunch. He offered half to Zareth, forgetting that she could not eat it. I appreciate the thought, Zareth said, her skin glowing warm orange. But this would make me very sick. Sorry, Jake said. I should have remembered. Most humans do not even know we have different dietary needs, Zareth replied. You tried to share what you had. That matters more than getting it right. Jake started bringing her coffee instead. Good coffee from the officer's lounge, not the cheap stuff from the vending machines. Zareth never asked how he got it. Jake never explained that he had to wake up early to brew it before the officers arrived. During their quiet lunches, Jake learned more about Zareth's life. She had been a professor on her homeworld, teaching stellar physics to graduate students. She had published research papers that were used throughout the galaxy. When the war came, she lost everything in a single day. My university was one of the first targets, Zareth told him. They said knowledge was dangerous. They burned the libraries and scattered the teachers. Jake tried to imagine losing everything he knew. His small apartment, his job, even his planet. Starting over with nothing among strangers who did not want him there. Do you miss it? He asked. Your old life? Zareth's skin shifted through several colors before settling on pale blue. I miss the feeling of being useful, of doing work that mattered. Here I clean floors that will be dirty again tomorrow. Your work matters, Jake said. The station would fall apart without maintenance. You are kind to say that. But we both know the truth. Jake wanted to argue, but Zareth was right. Cleaning floors was important, but it was not the same as teaching physics or conducting research. Her talents were being wasted. One afternoon, Jake was called to fix a problem in the recreational area. This was where families lived on the station. Children played in the gardens while their parents worked. It was one of the happiest places on New Horizons. Jake was replacing a broken water fountain when he heard screaming. A group of children had been playing near the observation windows when something went wrong. One of the window seals had failed. Air was rushing out into space. Emergency barriers should have dropped immediately, but they were stuck. Jake ran toward the sound and saw 5 human children huddled against the far wall. The air in the room was getting thin. In a few minutes, they would suffocate. Jake tried to activate the emergency systems manually, but nothing worked. The barriers were jammed by debris from construction work. He needed help, but the engineering teams were on the other side of the station. Then Zareth appeared. She must have heard the emergency alarms. Without hesitation, she ran toward the failing window. The air current was so strong it could pull her into space, but she did not stop. Zareth reached into her cleaning cart and pulled out a can of emergency foam. Jake had seen it before but never understood what it was for. She sprayed the foam around the window seal. It expanded rapidly, blocking the air leak. But the foam would not hold for long. Zareth grabbed a metal plate from Jake's tool cart and pressed it against the window. She held it there with her body while Jake welded it in place. The air stopped rushing out. The children were safe. Parents arrived a few minutes later, followed by security teams and medical staff. Everyone checked on the children first. They were scared but unhurt. Jake and Zareth stepped back and let the families reunite. "Thank you," one of the mothers said to Jake. Then she noticed Zareth standing nearby. Her expression changed from gratitude to suspicion. What was she doing here? "She helped save your children," Jake said. The woman looked uncomfortable. "I am sure you handled it fine on your own." Other parents gathered around. They thanked Jake repeatedly but ignored Zareth completely. Some moved their children away from her as if she might be dangerous. Jake watched this happen with growing anger. Zareth had risked her life to save those children. She had acted without thinking while their own parents were nowhere to be found. But because she was different, because she was a refugee, her heroism did not count. Captain Brooks arrived to investigate the incident. He questioned Jake about what had happened. Jake explained how Zareth had used the emergency foam and helped hold the plate in place. "Convenient that she was nearby," Brooks said, "and that she happened to have exactly the right equipment." "She was doing her job," Jake replied. "Cleaning the corridors. The foam is standard maintenance equipment." Brooks did not look convinced. "We will need to investigate how the window seal failed in the first place." Jake realized what Brooks was suggesting. He thought Zareth might have sabotaged the window to create a crisis she could solve. The idea was insane, but Jake could see that others were thinking the same thing. "The seal failed because it was old," Jake said firmly. "I have been reporting stress fractures in that section for months. Check my maintenance logs." Brooks did check the logs later. Jake was right about the fractures. The window had been scheduled for replacement next month. But some people still whispered that Zareth had been involved somehow. That evening, Jake found Zareth in his workshop. She was sitting on a stool near his workbench, staring at the tools hanging on the wall. Her skin was dark blue, almost black. Jake had never seen her so upset. "You should not be here," Jake said gently. "If someone sees you, they might think you are stealing something." "Let them think what they want," Zareth replied. "They already believe the worst about me." Jake sat down across from her. "You saved those children. That is what matters, is it?" Zareth turned to look at him. Her eyes were wet with tears that glowed like liquid starlight. "I risked my life for them. I would have died to protect them. And their parents looked at me like I was a monster." Jake did not know what to say. She was right. The parents had been ungrateful and cruel. "I need to understand something," Zareth continued. "Why do you help me? Everyone else on this station sees me as a threat or a burden. You have nothing to gain from being kind to me. Your own people judge you for it, so why?" Jake felt his heart beating faster. This was the question he had been dreading and hoping for at the same time. He could give an easy answer. Something about basic decency or following regulations. But Zareth deserved better than lies. "You really want to know?" Jake asked. "Yes. I need to understand why one human is different from the rest." Jake looked around his workshop. The tools his grandfather had given him hung on the walls. Pictures of his family sat on the workbench. This was his safe place where he could be honest. "Because I know what it feels like," he said finally. "What do you mean?" Jake took a deep breath. "I know what it feels like to be invisible, to have people look right through you like you do not matter. I have been the person nobody notices, nobody values. I know how that feels." Zareth's skin flickered with interest. "Tell me." "I grew up poor," Jake began. "My dad left when I was young. My mom worked 3 jobs to keep us fed. I was the kid with old clothes and no money for school trips. Teachers forgot my name. Other kids ignored me unless they needed someone to pick on." The words came easier than Jake expected. He had never told anyone this story before. "When I started working here, nothing changed. I am just the maintenance guy. People call me when something breaks, then forget I exist. Doctors and scientists think I am too stupid to understand their work. Officers think I am beneath their notice." Zareth listened without interrupting. Her skin had shifted to a soft green color that Jake was learning meant deep attention. "So when I see how they treat you," Jake continued, "I recognize it. You are brilliant and brave and kind. But they only see an alien refugee. They have decided you are worthless before they even know you. And that angers you?" "It does. But more than that, it reminds me of something my grandmother taught me." Jake smiled, remembering the old woman who had raised him while his mother worked. Grandma Rosa came to Earth as a refugee herself. She escaped a war in South America with nothing but the clothes on her back. She used to tell me that you can judge a person's true character by how they treat people who cannot help them. Zareth was very still now, hanging on every word. She said kindness is not about what you can get back. It is about who you choose to be when nobody is watching. When there is no reward for doing the right thing. Your grandmother sounds wise. She was, and she would have liked you. They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Jake felt lighter somehow, like a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. He had told the truth and the sky had not fallen. There is something else, Jake said quietly. But when I look at you, I do not see a refugee or an alien or a threat. I see someone who knows more about physics than anyone on this station, but gets stuck cleaning toilets. I see someone who saves children without thinking about the danger. I see someone. Captain Ryan Brooks stood frozen in the corridor outside Jake's workshop. He had come to check on reports of unauthorized personnel in the maintenance areas. Instead, he had heard something that shook him to his core. Brooks was a career military man. He had spent 20 years fighting wars across the galaxy. He had seen alien species conquer human colonies and human forces destroy alien worlds. Trust was a luxury he could not afford in his line of work. But listening to Jake's words made Brooks remember something he had tried to forget. His own grandfather had been a refugee too, fleeing persecution on Earth long before the space age. The old man had died when Brooks was young, but not before teaching him about courage and compassion. Brooks had buried those lessons under years of military training and bitter experience. Now they came flooding back, carried by the simple honesty of a maintenance worker who saw beyond fear and prejudice. The captain walked away without revealing himself. He had much to think about. The next morning brought new challenges to the station. Long-range sensors detected unknown ships approaching from the outer rim. 3 vessels moving fast and broadcasting no identification signals. Commander Hayes called an emergency meeting in the command center. All senior staff attended, including Dr. Carter and Captain Brooks. Jake was not invited, but he heard about it from other maintenance workers. The ships will arrive in 6 hours, Hayes announced. We have tried to contact them, but they are not responding to our signals. Dr. Carter studied the sensor readings. The ship designs are unfamiliar, not from any species in the Galactic Coalition database. Could they be explorers? Asked Lieutenant Sarah Kim from the Communications Department. Captain Brooks shook his head. Their approach pattern is too aggressive. They are moving like a military formation. Hayes turned to the station's tactical officer. What are our defenses? Limited, Major Pete Anderson replied. We have defensive shields and some light weapons. This is a research station, not a fortress. Can we evacuate? Dr. Carter asked. Not in 6 hours, Hayes said. We would need days to get everyone off the station safely. The meeting continued for 2 hours. They discussed every option they could think of. Hiding behind the nearby moon, sending distress signals to coalition forces, preparing to surrender if necessary. None of the options were good. The nearest coalition fleet was days away. The station could not outrun military ships. If the approaching vessels were hostile, New Horizons was in serious trouble. As the meeting ended, Captain Brooks made a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. I want to speak with the Velnari refugee, he said. The one called Zareth. Dr. Carter looked confused. Why? Her people came from this region of space. She might know something about these ships. Hayes nodded slowly. Good thinking. Bring her in. 20 minutes later, Zareth stood in the command center surrounded by the station's leadership. Her skin was pale gray, which Jake would have recognized as a sign of extreme stress. She had never been in the command center except during emergencies. We need your help, Brooks said directly. Unknown ships are approaching. They might be from this sector. Do you recognize them? Brooks showed Zareth the sensor readings and ship silhouettes. Her skin immediately turned dark blue. Fear. Those are Dominion ships, she said quietly. The same empire that destroyed my homeworld. Silence filled the command center. The Dominion was the most feared military force in the galaxy. They conquered planets for resources and enslaved the populations. No one had expected them to reach this far into coalition space. What do they want? Hayes asked. Everything, Zareth replied. They take what they can use and destroy the rest. Your station would be a valuable prize. Advanced technology, scientific data, a strategic location. Dr. Carter leaned forward. Do you know their tactics? Their weaknesses? Zarath nodded. I studied their methods during the war, but I doubt you will listen to advice from a refugee. Brooks surprised himself by speaking up. We are listening now. For the next hour, Zarath shared everything she knew about Dominion ships. Their shield frequencies, weapon patterns, and boarding procedures. She drew diagrams of their ship layouts and explained their command structure. Their biggest weakness is overconfidence, she explained. They expect quick surrenders. If you resist longer than expected, their formation becomes sloppy. How do you know so much about their military? Dr. Carter asked suspiciously. Because I helped design the defenses that held them off for 3 months, Zarath replied, before they brought in planet-killer weapons and ended the war. The room went quiet again. No one had known that Zarath was more than just a physics professor. She had been a military consultant during the war. Why should we trust her? Dr. Carter asked Brooks quietly. This could be a trap. Brooks looked at Zarath standing alone in the center of the room. Her skin was flickering between blue and gray. She was terrified, but she was still trying to help the people who had rejected her. Because she is here, Brooks said simply. If this was a trap, she would have evacuated already. Hayes made the decision. What do you recommend? Zarath outlined a defensive plan. It was risky and would require perfect timing, but it was better than anything else they had discussed. There is one more thing, Zarath said hesitantly. The Dominion offers terms before attacking. They will demand surrender and threaten to destroy the station if you refuse. Most people give up at that point. And if we do not give up, Hayes asked, then they try to take the station by force. If you can hold out long enough, they might decide you are too much trouble and leave. Brooks studied the defensive plan. It was brilliant in its simplicity. Use the station's own systems against the attackers. Turn maintenance tunnels into ambush points. Make every corridor a battlefield. This could work, he said slowly, but we would need someone who knows Dominion tactics to coordinate the defense. Everyone looked at Zarath. She was the only person on the station who had fought them before. You want me to help plan the defense? She asked. More than that, Brooks replied. I want you to help lead it, Dr. Carter exploded. You cannot be serious. Put a refugee in charge of our security. She knows the enemy better than anyone. Brooks shot back. Her plan is our best chance of survival. How do we know she will not betray us? Help her own people escape while we fight? Brooks felt anger rise in his chest. The same anger Jake had felt when people accused Zarath of sabotage. The Dominion destroyed her world, Brooks said firmly. They are not her people. They are her enemies. Hayes stepped between them. Enough. We are running out of time. She turned to Zarath. Will you help us? Zarath's skin shifted through several colors before settling on silver determination. Yes, but I have one condition. What? Jake Martinez must be part of the defense team. He knows the maintenance systems better than anyone. We will need someone who can move through the hidden passages. Dr. Carter laughed bitterly. Now she wants to bring her pet human into this too? Brooks had heard enough. Martinez stays. Anyone who disagrees can explain their objections to the Dominion when they arrive. The next few hours passed in a blur of preparation. Zarath worked with the security teams to set up defensive positions. Jake helped route power and communications through backup systems. Other crew members prepared weapons and supplies. As the enemy ships drew closer, word spread through the station about who was leading the defense. Some people were angry. They could not believe their lives were in the hands of an alien refugee and a maintenance worker. But others remembered the solar flare incident. They remembered how Zarath had saved the station when the experts failed. They remembered how Jake had spoken up for her when no one else would. 1 hour before the Dominion ships arrived, Jake found himself alone with Zarath in the command center. She was studying the tactical displays, making final adjustments to their plans. Are you scared? Jake asked. Terrified, Zarath replied honestly, but also angry. They destroyed my home. Now they want to destroy yours. This is not really my home, Jake said. I am just a worker here. Zarath turned to look at him. Her skin was glowing soft gold. You made it my home too. When everyone else saw an enemy, you saw a person. When they offered hatred, you offered friendship. She paused, choosing her words carefully. You told me yesterday that kindness is about who you choose to be when nobody is watching. Today everyone is watching. The whole station will see what kind of man you really are. Jake felt the weight of her words. In a few minutes, people who had ignored him for years would depend on his skills to survive. The maintenance worker would become the defender. "I am ready," he said simply. The Dominion ships appeared on the main screen. 3 massive vessels bristling with weapons. They moved with the confidence of predators approaching helpless prey. Commander Hayes opened a communication channel. "Unknown vessels, this is New Horizons Station. Identify yourselves and state your intentions." The response came in the harsh tones of the Dominion military. "Surrender immediately or be destroyed. You have 1 hour to evacuate all personnel. This station now belongs to the Dominion Empire." Hayes looked around the command center. Jake saw determination on every face, even those who had opposed, including Zareth in the defense. "This is Commander Hayes," she replied. "New Horizons Station does not surrender. If you want our home, you will." The Dominion attack began exactly as Zareth had predicted. The 3 ships spread out and bombarded the station's shields with heavy weapons. They expected the defenders to panic and surrender within minutes. Instead, they found themselves fighting a carefully planned defense. Jake crawled through maintenance tunnels that most people did not know existed. He rerouted power from damaged sections and kept communications working between defensive positions. Every few minutes he reported to Zareth through his headset. "Power holding steady in Section C," Jake whispered as explosions shook the station around him. "Backup generators online." "Good," Zareth replied from the command center. "Redirect shield power to the lower decks. That is where they will try to board." Captain Brooks was leading security teams through the corridors. For the first time in his career, he was taking tactical advice from a refugee. It felt strange, but Zareth's predictions had been perfect so far. "Enemy boarding pods incoming," reported Lieutenant Kim. "They are targeting airlocks 7 through 12. "Let them," Zareth said calmly. "We want them to board there." Dr. Carter looked shocked. "Let them board? Are you insane?" "Trust the plan," Commander Hayes ordered. The Dominion soldiers cut through the outer airlocks and poured into the station. They moved in tight formations, expecting scattered resistance from frightened civilians. Instead, they walked into carefully prepared ambushes. Jake had helped Zareth plan every detail. Emergency blast doors sealed off sections behind the invaders. Security teams attacked from hidden positions in maintenance areas. The Dominion soldiers found themselves trapped in corridors that had become mazes. "Section 7 is clear," Brooks reported. "Enemy forces neutralized." "Section 9 is ours," added Major Anderson. One by one, the boarding teams were defeated or captured. The Dominion ships responded by sending more soldiers, but they could only use the same damaged airlocks. Each wave walked into the same traps. After 2 hours of fighting, something unprecedented happened. The Dominion ships stopped attacking and pulled back to a safe distance. In the command center, everyone stared at the tactical display in amazement. They had done it. They had fought off the most feared military force in the galaxy. "Why are they retreating?" Dr. Carter asked. "Because we made it too expensive," Zareth explained. "They lost half their boarding forces and gained nothing. The Dominion does not waste resources on difficult targets when easier ones are available." Commander Hayes opened a communication channel to the Dominion ships. "This is New Horizons Station. Your boarding action has failed. Withdraw from our space immediately." The Dominion commander's face appeared on the screen. He was a scarred veteran with cold eyes that had seen countless battles. "You fought well," he admitted grudgingly. "This station is not worth the cost of taking it. We will find easier prey." The 3 ships turned and jumped to hyperspace, leaving the station in peace. Cheers erupted throughout the command center. People hugged each other and celebrated their impossible victory. But Jake noticed that Zareth stood apart from the celebration, her skin a subdued shade of blue. "What is wrong?" he asked quietly. "They will be back," Zareth replied. "Maybe not tomorrow or next year, but eventually. And next time they will bring more ships. Then we will be ready for them," Jake said. Zareth smiled sadly. "You will be, but I will not be here to help." Jake felt his heart sink. "What do you mean?" "Look around," Zareth said, gesturing at the celebrating crowd. "They are happy because they won, but they will remember that they needed an alien refugee to save them. That will not sit well with some people." Jake wanted to argue, but he knew she was right. Even in victory, there would be those who resented owing their lives to someone they considered inferior. The next few days proved Zareth's fears correct. While many people on the station praised her role in the defense, others found ways to diminish her contribution. They said the plan would have worked anyway. They claimed human ingenuity was the real reason for victory. Dr. Carter was the loudest voice of opposition. He filed a formal complaint about including non-coalition personnel in military planning. He demanded an investigation into security breaches and questioned Zarath's true loyalties. She could have been feeding information to the enemy, Carter argued in meetings. How do we know this was not all planned? But something had changed in Captain Brooks. The man who had once been suspicious of all aliens now found himself defending Zarath at every turn. She saved this station, Brooks told anyone who would listen. She put her life on the line for people who treated her like garbage. If that does not prove her loyalty, nothing will. Jake also found support in unexpected places. Engineers who had ignored him for years now asked for his opinions on security improvements. His knowledge of the station's hidden systems had been crucial to victory, but the real test came a week later when Commander Hayes called Jake to her office. "Sit down, Martinez," Hayes said. "We need to talk." Jake sat nervously in the chair across from her desk. He had never been in the commander's office before. "What you did during the attack was remarkable," Hayes began. "Your knowledge of the maintenance system saved lives. Your willingness to work with Zarath helped coordinate our defense. Thank you, Commander. However," Hayes continued, "some people are saying you overstepped your authority. They claim you had no right to include an alien refugee in military planning." Jake felt his chest tighten. Zarath knew more about the enemy than anyone else on the station. "I agree, but Dr. Carter is calling for disciplinary action against both of you." Jake stood up straighter. "Then discipline me, but leave Zarath alone. She risked everything to help us." Hayes studied him carefully. "You are willing to sacrifice your career for her?" "If that is what it takes, yes." The commander smiled slightly. "Relax, Martinez. Dr. Carter's complaints are going nowhere." Before Jake could respond, the office door opened. Captain Brooks entered, followed by Major Anderson and Lieutenant Kim. Jake was confused until he realized they were all there to support him. "Martinez," Brooks said formally, "the security department has reviewed your actions during the Dominion attack. Your performance was exemplary." Major Anderson stepped forward. "The engineering department agrees. Your knowledge and quick thinking were essential to our victory." "The communications department also supports Martinez," added Lieutenant Kim. "His work keeping our systems running allowed us to coordinate the defense." Jake looked from face to face, hardly believing what he was hearing. These were officers who had barely noticed him before the attack. Commander Hayes stood up behind her desk. "Jake Martinez, by the authority of the Galactic Coalition, I am promoting you to Assistant Chief of Station Operations. Your new position will include responsibility for emergency planning and coordination between departments." Jake sat down hard in his chair. What? "You showed leadership when it mattered most," Hayes explained. "You saw solutions that others missed. You worked with people that others rejected. Those are the qualities we need in leadership positions." Brooks stepped forward again. "There is one more thing. The security department is recommending Zarath for a position in our tactical planning division. Her expertise could prevent future attacks." "But she is a refugee," Jake said weakly. "The Coalition does not recognize her credentials." "The Coalition recognizes results," Hayes replied. "Zarath's plan saved this station. That is credential enough." 3 months later, Jake sat in his new office reviewing security reports. Through his window, he could see Zarath working with a team of engineers on improved shield designs. She wore the blue uniform of a Coalition technical specialist now. Her refugee status officially changed to permanent resident. The changes had not been easy. Some people still grumbled about aliens and maintenance workers getting above their stations, but the majority of the crew had embraced the new reality. They had seen what happened when people were judged by their abilities rather than their backgrounds. Dr. Carter had requested a transfer to another station. His complaints about alien influence had fallen on deaf ears after the successful defense. He left quietly, replaced by a younger scientist who was eager to learn from Zarath's expertise. Jake heard a soft knock on his office door. "Come in." Zarath entered carrying a cup of coffee and a data pad. Her skin was glowing a warm gold color that Jake had learned meant contentment. "The new defense plans are ready for your review," she said, setting the pad on his desk. "Thanks. How are you settling into the new job? Better than I expected?" "It feels good to be useful again." They worked together reviewing the plans. Jake still did not understand all the technical details, but he could see the brilliance in Zareth's designs. The station would be much better protected if the Dominion ever returned. "Can I ask you something?" Zareth said as they finished up. "Of course. Do you ever regret it? Standing up for me? Your life would have been simpler if you had just ignored me like everyone else." Jake thought about the question seriously. His old life had been quieter, more predictable. He had been invisible but safe. Now he had responsibilities and expectations. People watched him and judged his decisions. "No," he said finally. "I do not regret it. Why?" Jake smiled, remembering their conversation in his workshop. "Because you asked me to tell you the truth. The truth is that helping you was the best thing.